Okay, this is our last discussion about subroutines and functions, and this one is how to use parameters with functions. Now remember, we did this already, parameters with subroutines. In fact, let's go back and look at that for a second. We looked at this section before, and we defined a subroutine called add numbers, and it took two parameters. Both of them were integers, right? We're here, two parameters. Both of them are integers, and we passed by value. We passed the parameters by value as opposed to by reference. So we had this for a subroutine, and it was called add numbers. Now let's go to trying to do a function that also takes parameters. So the other one was called add numbers, and now we're going to make a function called add two numbers, almost the same name. So we're going to define a function called add two numbers. We did this basically this kind of thing just before in the last section or so. This one is as integer. That means what comes out of this function should be an integer. But now, we haven't done this for functions before. We're going to pass parameters. We call it passing parameters to the function. In other words, it's going to be a function that takes two parameters. Okay, so what is it going to do? What is it going to do? It's going to take these two values, and what's it going to do? It's going to take the first one called first and the second one called second. It's just going to add them and put them into a local variable, local to within the function. It's defined within the function, right? Answer is defined within the function in here. So it's going to assign it to answer. And then, but remember, when we're doing function, we have to pass something to the name of the function. The name of the function is add two numbers. We have to pass something to it. In other words, we have to assign something to it. So we're assigning answer, which came from here, to this. And that means what will come out of this function is the sum of the two things that go into it. So let's see what he says. In the previous section, you learned how to set up a simple function, in other words, one that doesn't take parameters. Let's set up another function as a further example. This time we'll add some parameters to our function. You use the parameters in exactly the same way you did for sub. So add another text button to your form. Set its text property to get function answer. Add two text boxes to your form. Set the name property of the first text box to text number 1, and the name of the second property, the name property of the second text box to text number 2. Set up the following function in your code. So we're going to make a function. We haven't called it yet. Even after we write this function, we won't have called it yet. The first line might be spread over 2 lines. You can keep yours on 1 line. So this is spread over 2 lines, but you can keep yours on 2 lines. 2012 users can miss out the by value, can leave out the by value. So we don't need that if you have 2012 version. Okay, so here it is, private add function, Then we do all this with the parameters. We say that it's going to output as integer, and this and this and add end function. Okay, again, so we wrote this function, but we haven't used it. But we want to use it also. Okay, so that's good. You can read this. But he says also, instead of this line, if you don't want to do it this way, that is, you can just say return answer. That does the same thing as this. Answer equals this. This also means answer what is the thing that will be sent out of the function. So either way is fine. Okay, now we want to try and use the function. So open up the code for your getAnswer button. So we just put a button on there called getAnswer, and add the following code. So are we going to call this function? Yeah, down here we're going to call it. And what are we going to put into it? This and this. And where do these come from? They are here and here. And by the way, was this by val or by reference? It was by val. So what does that mean about whether... Well, actually, it doesn't matter in this case because we're not doing anything to these values. But okay. Anyway, we also okay. So that's all. And then we're taking the result and we're putting it in result. And then we have an if statement about the result. If result equals 0, then please try again. If there's otherwise, the answer is result. I don't know why. If it's 0, it's not good, but I guess not sure. Okay. So kind of weird. Why can't it equal 0? But anyway, that's what he said. That's the code. Okay. So it's pretty straightforward. We're saying run the function called add2numbers. Hand it the values from the two variables. Here and here, and they get their values from this text box and this text box. Pass whatever the value is of the result to the variable called result. The next few lines are just testing what's inside. Okay. Okay, so that is all about functions. So, is there any place for you to use a function as opposed to a subroutine in your final project? So please think about it and see if you can come up with a place where you could use a function. And can you use a function that takes parameters in your final project? Okay, so you're going to put all this down. Now I might change this assignment and make you do it on Google Form. So please check the Blackboard, where I'll tell you exactly whether you should put it in a Word document, or I'll give you a link to do this in Google Forms.